Imagine that it's not one person living inside your head, but two, each with their own opinions, their own desires, and sometimes they literally disagree with each other. Sounds like the setup for a movie about split personality, right? Except this isn't fiction, and it isn't a psychiatric myth. It's a real, thoroughly documented, well-studied medical fact. And today, we're breaking it down with zero conspiracy theories. Pure science. It all starts in the mid-20th century. Some people had such severe epilepsy that a seizure, once it started in one hemisphere of the brain, would rapidly jump to the other, traveling through a thick bundle of roughly 200 million nerve fibers connecting the left and right hemispheres, called the corpus callosum. As a last resort, doctors started simply cutting this bundle surgically. The idea was simple. If a seizure can't jump from one side to the other, it stays localized and becomes far less destructive. And the surgery worked. But it had an unexpected side effect, one that wasn't noticed by the surgeons, but by neuroscientists. Those neuroscientists were Roger Sperry, who later received a Nobel Prize for this work, and his student, Michael Gazzaniga. They began studying patients after this kind of surgery, known as split brain patients, and discovered that the corpus callosum wasn't just a signal wire. It was the only communication channel between two essentially separately operating information processing systems. By cutting it, doctors had accidentally isolated two halves of one single person's consciousness from each other. To understand how this was tested, you need one detail about how vision is wired. The left visual field from both
Precision
eyes
dictates
sends
our
information
reality.
to the right hemisphere
Crystalline
of the brain,
mathematics
and the
define
right
us.
visual field sends information to the left hemisphere. In an ordinary person, the corpus callosum instantly exchanges this information between the two hemispheres, and you experience one seamless picture. And here's where things get genuinely fascinating. In one of the classic experiments, a patient was shown a word, say cup, positioned so it landed exclusively in the left visual field, meaning it went exclusively to the right hemisphere. In most people, the language centers sit in the left hemisphere, so when the patient was asked, "What did you see?" they would honestly answer, "I didn't see anything." Because the hemisphere doing the talking, the left one,
is our
genuinely
only path.
hadn't seen it. But then the patient was asked to use their left hand, which is controlled by the right hemisphere, to feel around blindly among a set of hidden objects and pick out the thing they supposedly hadn't seen. And the hand would unerringly pick up the cup. Part of the brain knew the answer perfectly well. The other part, the one that talks and identifies itself as I, had no idea at all. But it gets even stranger from there. Gazzaniga ran an experiment where the right hemisphere, without the left speaking hemisphere knowing anything about it, was shown a simple instruction, like stand up and walk. The patient would stand up and walk. And when immediately asked why they'd gotten up, the left hemisphere, which had
This
no
anomaly
idea
is
about
spreading.
the real reason,
It's fusing with the
didn't miss
healthy
a
tissue.
beat. It instantly, confidently, without a shred of doubt, invented a plausible explanation. I wanted to grab a soda, for example. And here's the crucial part. The person had no sense that they were lying. They were completely convinced this was the real reason. Gazzaniga named this function of the left hemisphere the interpreter, a dedicated module of the brain whose job is to constantly stitch scattered pieces of information into a single, logically consistent story about yourself. Even when that means honestly, but unknowingly, inventing reasons after the fact. Sometimes the disagreement between the hemispheres became literally physical. There are documented cases where a split brain patient's one hand would be buttoning up a shirt while the other hand, at the exact same time, was unbuttoning it. Or one hand would reach to grab an object, while the other hand immediately pushed that same hand away. This is a separate, also well-studied phenomenon known as alien hand syndrome, and split-brain patients are one of the clearest, most striking examples of how it shows you. By the way, when these surgeries first started being performed, doctors seriously worried that patients would end up with two conflicting consciousnesses, or something resembling a split personality showing up in everyday life. That didn't happen, and here's why. In real life, you never look at the world with a perfectly fixed gaze. You're constantly moving your eyes and head, and information ends up naturally reaching both visual fields almost simultaneously anyway. The split only becomes noticeable in a lab setting, where scientists artificially fix the patient's gaze and flash a stimulus for a fraction of a second, strictly within one half of the visual field, a situation that almost never occurs in nature. It turns out the brain is remarkably good at compensating for even this kind of radical disconnection, simply by shifting its behavioral strategy. It's important to be completely honest here, without exaggerating for effect. This doesn't mean that people who've had this surgery walk around with two different people constantly arguing inside their head, like in a movie. In everyday conditions, the brain compensates beautifully for the missing connection between hemispheres, and most patients live completely normal lives, barely noticing any difference. The divergence only shows up under very specific laboratory conditions, when scientists deliberately feed isolated information into just one hemisphere. But the mere possibility of that divergence is direct, experimentally confirmed proof that your sense of being one single, indivisible me isn't something the brain comes pre-installed with. It's actively assembled and stitched together out of the work of two parallel, largely independent systems. And since we're already talking about hemispheres, let's put one popular myth to rest while we're here. The idea that the left hemisphere is logic, the right hemisphere is creativity, and that people supposedly have a dominant, more creative or more rational half of their personality, that's an oversimplification that science stopped supporting a long time ago, at least in the form it took on internet personality quizzes. Real lateralization of function does exist. For example, language centers really are more often located in the left hemisphere, in roughly 95% of right-handed people. And spatial processing and facial recognition do skew somewhat more toward the right hemisphere. But these are subtle statistical tendencies in how specific tasks get divided up, not a split of your entire personality into a creative half and a logical half. And here's what's worth taking away from all of this. Even inside your fully intact, undamaged brain right now, two largely independent, specialized hemispheres are working away, constantly exchanging information through that exact same bundle of 200 million fibers. The feeling that you're one single, indivisible me isn't some default, pre-given fact. It's active, ongoing work that your brain performs every single second, just so you can feel like one person instead of two.